BYOG or sell. Injuries are not a factor here. Injuries are not now. Obviously, they will be during the season, but for this scenario, we're excluding injuries. The starting five against Georgia on the offensive line will be the same starting five at the end of the season. This is not including situations where there's injuries or anything like so. Assuming everybody is healthy.
I'm gonna sell. I don't think that's gonna happen.
I'm with you.
I think there's a couple guys that are going to initially start this season that could possibly see their starting time dwindle as the season progresses. Last week I talked about the center position and kind of the battle that's going on there with Ryan Lithicum and Harris Sewell, and who's going to come out on top of that battle, who's going to be there. And I think Ryan Lithicum is probably going to be the guy that runs out there against Georgia. But if you guys listen to last week's episode, I think Harris Sewell is the guy that eventually takes over for the bigger part of next season, or this upcoming season, I should say. So I'll sell on that just for that specific position alone. But I think as a whole, we'll see some change. Hopefully, it's not the musical chairs that we have seen in seasons past, where it's you never know who the starting five is from week to week. We couldn't even, there was a period of time where Clemson couldn't even get the same starting five for 2 weeks in a row for a long period of time there. At least it seemed like. So I'll sell on that, but I do think our offensive line will be a bit more stable this year than in seasons past.
I think I'm with you. But I don't think it. But hey, obviously you can't leave out the possibility that one guy, especially at the center position, kind of steps up there. We didn't even talk about left tackle and kind of where that sits. Obviously, I do think Tristan Lay is probably the guy that they want to go with to begin. But he doesn't deliver. Maybe you throw in Colin Sadler out there or Ian Reed or some of the younger guys. So I do think there's some fluidity at those two positions. But obviously, 3 of your 5 starters are pretty locked in. But there definitely is room for flux there. So I'm with you on that. The Peter Woods experiment at defensive end lasts the entire season.
Mm. I'll buy. I think he's going to be really good at defensive end. And outside of me just thinking that he will be very good at defensive end, I think we're extremely deep at defensive tackle, and we have a ton of talent there. So, not that you couldn't use a guy like Peter Woods at defensive tackle, you obviously could. I mean, the dude's an absolute game changer. He's a game wrecker. Anywhere you put him along the defensive line, I think he's going to be felt by that offense in a very big way. So I will buy that because I think he is going to be a game changer at defensive end, and I think we do need that reliable guy out there. We've talked about kind of the originally coming into spring practice not having a ton known outside of a couple guys in that room. We need some guys to step up, and I think Peter Woods obviously is going to be a big piece of that defensive end group for the entire season. So,
yeah, I think I'm with you. But I wanted to throw this question out there because not necessarily because I was like, okay, I don't think Peter Woods is going to be good, isn't going to be good at defensive end. I think it's what if you have the guys that are already in your defensive end group step up, and you don't, because I mean the reason he's making this move in the first place is because they felt like they needed to with where the depth and the quality is at right now. But what if you have a guy like AJ Hoffler stand up, step up
yeah.
and kind of, I mean, you saw the promise, and
Mm-hmm.
they're obviously really high on him. You still have, Kate Denhoff in the room and who, obviously is one of the older guys, but if he, takes a step forward and can give you quality play on the edge, then there's a lot less that you have to work with. Jaheim Lawson, obviously a guy they continue to rave about, and we'll see if he
Yeah.
can deliver on that hype. Of course, you still have Zaire Patterson. Crazier things have happened. Maybe he finally has that aha moment, and the light bulb comes on, and he's ready to be that. I'm not banking on it, but I thought it would be an interesting type of thing because I don't think Peter Woods will stay at defensive end his entire career. I do think
Right.
ideally you want him to you want the defensive end room to get to a point where they can move him back inside, kind of like what they did with Christian Wilkins back in the day.
Yeah.
So I do think, but I do think having him at defensive end for this season does give this room a boost, and I think it will, and especially with what you have in the defensive tackle room right now, it makes you a little bit more flexible. So,
yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, and thinking about it from the perspective that you're approaching it with guys that are going to step up. I think that's really interesting and maybe something that I didn't think about fully, but I do think that he will still primarily play defensive end for this season. But moving back inside, I think you're right. He's definitely probably going to move back inside, and you may see if guys like Hoffler and Lawson and some of the other younger guys step up. You could see, maybe Peter Woods moving
hey,
down
true
the
freshman
tackle.
Darian Mayo, forgot to mention
Yeah,
him.
Darian Mayo.
Really high on him.
So if you see some of these young guys step up, there could be a possibility where, from a rotation standpoint, they start rotating some of these young guys in more. And on those plays, maybe they're pushing Peter Woods down in the defensive tackle spot. So I think you could see a lot of that, but I'll buy on that. I think he'll play primarily defensive end this season, although I think he will get snaps at defensive tackle too, probably because of the rotation and getting some of those young guys some much needed experience.